The legacy of the German Panzer divisions in World War II is one marked by both technological innovation and battlefield prowess, which fundamentally shaped the early years of the conflict. These armored units, better known as panzers, were not merely collections of tanks but cohesive mobile formations that could strike with devastating speed and force, embodying the German doctrine of Blitzkrieg or lightning war. This strategy, revolutionary at its inception, involved coordinated attacks by tanks, motorized infantry, and aircraft to break through enemy lines and encircle opposing forces, thereby achieving rapid and decisive victories. The Panzer Division's impact began with the invasion of Poland in 1939, where they first demonstrated their effectiveness, overwhelming the Polish forces with their mobility and coordination. This success was replicated with even greater effect in 1940 during the fall of France. The German Panzers, spearheaded by commanders such as Heinz Guderian and Erwin Rommel, executed maneuvers that bypassed the heavily fortified Maginot Line, cutting through the Ardennes, a feat considered impossible by most military strategists of the time. The speed and shock of the German advance through the Ardennes to the English Channel effectively split Allied forces in two, leading to the rapid capitulation of France. These early triumphs established the Panzers as the epitome of modern mechanized warfare, significantly influencing both Axis and Allied strategic planning. The tanks themselves, ranging from the lighter Panzer I and II to the more formidable Panzer III and IV, were continuously improved in response to battlefield requirements and enemy capabilities. By mid-war, the Panzers had evolved in design to meet the increasing demands of combat and to counter the rising quality of Allied armor, culminating in the introduction of the formidable Panther and Tiger tanks. However, the Panzer divisions were more than their tanks. They were a complex system of support vehicles, logistics, and highly trained crews, all working in concert to achieve battlefield objectives. The crews were seasoned through rigorous training and combat experience, instilling a level of discipline and efficiency that made the Panzer divisions a formidable opponent in the early and mid-war periods. Despite their early successes, the Panzer divisions were not invincible. Their effectiveness was challenged as the war progressed, particularly on the Eastern Front and during the later stages of the war in Western Europe. The harsh realities of extended supply lines, the brutal attrition of continuous fighting, and the ever-improving Allied tactics and technology began to diminish their impact. As the war turned against Germany, the strategic situation revealed the limitations of Blitzkrieg and the Panzer Division's vulnerabilities, setting the stage for their eventual decline. The story of the German Panzer divisions is thus a narrative of rise and fall, of early dominance giving way to gradual decline under the weight of strategic overreach and relentless Allied advancements. It is a story that offers profound lessons on the evolution of armored warfare and the broader dynamics of military innovation and adaptation in the face of changing realities of war. This introductory chapter sets the stage to explore how these iron giants initially forged a path of victory only to encounter the limits of their power as the global conflict deepened and spread. As the specter of World War II loomed, Germany's strategic emphasis on mechanized warfare led to the development of the Panzer Division's armored units that would initially possess a formidable edge in technology and tactics. The Panzers were not merely tanks, but integral components of a broader strategy that encapsulated signal units, motorized infantry, artillery, and air support, all working in seamless coordination under the principles of Blitzkrieg. This concept relied heavily on the element of surprise, speed, and overwhelming force to disrupt and dismantle enemy defenses before they could effectively respond. The inception of Panzer technology reflected a blend of existing concepts and innovative engineering. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed severe restrictions on Germany's military capabilities, inadvertently pushing German military strategy towards unconventional avenues. This limitation spurred the development of the Panzer coup, which were originally intended for training purposes and light skirmishing, respectively. However, these early models laid the groundwork for more sophisticated designs. By the onset of the war, Germany had introduced the Panzer III and IV, which were to become the backbone of the early Blitzkrieg. The Panzer III was particularly designed for anti-tank combat, equipped with a 37 mm gun, which was later upgraded to a 50 mm gun as enemy armor improved. Meanwhile, the Panzer III, initially outfitted with a short-barreled 75 mm howitzer for infantry support, evolved to host a longer-barreled gun capable of engaging enemy tanks effectively at greater ranges. These tanks featured advanced communication systems, which were crucial for the coordination required in fast-paced maneuvers. What set the German Panzer divisions apart in the early years of the war was not just their technological hardware, but their revolutionary approach to armored warfare. German doctrine treated armored units as the spearheads of offensive operations, combined with close air support from the Luftwaffe. This integration of forces was practiced extensively during peacetime maneuvers, ensuring that panzer crews and their supporting elements were well prepared for the complexities of combined arms operations. The successful application of these tactics was vividly demonstrated during the invasion of Poland and the subsequent Battle of France. In Poland, the panzer divisions exploited gaps in Polish defenses, using their mobility to encircle and isolate segments of the Polish army. In France, the maneuver through the Ardennes, considered impassable by armored units, stunned the French and British forces. The panzers, moving quickly and striking hard, bypassed stronger defensive positions and sowed chaos deep behind the Allied lines, leading to a swift and decisive victory. Despite these early successes, the limitations of German panzer technology began to surface as the war progressed. The Panzer I incercle were quickly recognized as undergunned and poorly armored against more advanced enemy tanks. Even the upgraded Panzer III and IV struggled against newer Soviet armor, such as the T-34 and the KV series encountered during Operation Barbarossa. The German response was the development of the Panther and Tiger tanks, which represented significant leaps in armor and firepower, but also introduced new challenges in terms of mechanical reliability and production costs. The Panther, designed to counter the T-34, was equipped with a high-velocity 75 mm gun and had sloped armor for enhanced protection. The Tiger, featuring even thicker armor and a powerful 88 mm gun, became famous for its ability to destroy enemy tanks from long distances. However, both tanks were plagued by mechanical failures and were expensive and complex to produce, which limited their numbers on the battlefield. The technological superiority of the early panzer divisions was also supported by Germany's robust industrial base, which was capable of producing a large number of tanks quickly. However, as the war dragged on, the Allied strategic bombing campaign began targeting German industrial capacity, disrupting tank production and repair facilities. This attrition warfare gradually eroded the technological edge that the panzers had enjoyed. Furthermore, the logistical demands of operating and maintaining a modern tank force across the vast expanses of the Soviet Union and the deserts of North Africa taxed German resources to their limits. The supply lines, critical for fuel and spare parts, became overstretched, making the panzers vulnerable and diminishing their operational effectiveness. In the initial years of World War II, the German Panzer divisions indeed enjoyed a period of technological and tactical superiority that allowed them to dominate the battlefields of Europe. However, the very innovations that gave them this advantage also sowed the seeds of future challenges. As the war evolved, so too did the nature of tank warfare, with the Allies eventually matching and surpassing German technological advancements. The early War of Engines was a crucial phase that set the tone for the armored warfare that would define much of World War II. The Eastern Front of World War II, marked by its sheer scale and brutality, served as the crucible where the fate of the German Panzer divisions was ultimately forged. Initially, the Panzer's entry into the Soviet Union during Operation Barbarossa in June 1941 showcased their tactical and technological prowess. However, the vast distances, harsh climate, and the resilient Soviet resistance soon exposed the vulnerabilities of German armored warfare, leading to a significant shift in the tide of war. Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history, began with the German Panzer divisions at the spearhead, slicing through Soviet defenses with alarming speed. The Panzers were crucial in executing the Blitzkrieg tactics, aiming to quickly destroy the Red Army before it could organize a coherent defense. In the opening weeks, the strategy appeared successful. Cities like Minsk and Smolensk fell quickly, and the Panzers played a critical role in the encirclements that captured hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers. The Panzer III and IV, which had been effective in Western Europe, initially continued to perform well against the older models of Soviet tanks. The shock of the German invasion decimated the unprepared Soviet front lines, and the rapid advances fueled German expectations of a quick victory. The German confidence was soon to be shaken by the introduction of the Soviet T-34 tank, which combined superior armor, mobility, and firepower that was far superior to any existing designs the Panzers had faced. The T-34's sloped armor deflected anti-tank projectiles effectively, and its 76 mm gun outmatched the armaments of the Panzer III and IV. The first encounters with the T-34 were a rude awakening for the German forces, prompting an urgent reassessment of German armored warfare tactics and tank design. The response was the hastened development and deployment of the Panther and Tiger tanks, which aimed to match the T-34's capabilities. However, these newer models faced significant production delays and mechanical reliability issues, limiting their impact on the battlefield. The Battle of Stalingrad, from August 1942 to February 1943, epitomized the brutal urban warfare that became a gravedigger for the Panzers. Stalingrad was a major industrial city on the Volga River, and its capture was deemed essential for securing the southern flank of the Eastern Front and the nearby oil fields. However, the urban environment neutralized many advantages of the Panzers. The close-quarter combat in the rubble-strewn streets caused significant Panzer losses and bogged down German forces in a protracted siege. As winter set in, the overstretched German supply lines struggled to provide the necessary fuel and ammunition, reducing the mobility and effectiveness of the Panzer divisions. The Soviet counteroffensive, launched in November 1942, encircled the German Sixth Army, trapping the Panzers and other forces in a deadly vice. The defeat at Stalingrad was a catastrophic blow to Germany, marking the first major defeat of the Wehrmacht and a turning point on the Eastern Front. The Battle of Kursk in July 1943, often cited as the greatest tank battle in history, was another critical juncture for the Panzers. The Germans planned a massive offensive, Operation Citadel, to regain the initiative and cut off a large number of Soviet forces in a salient around the city of Kursk. The Panzers, including the new Tigers and Panthers, were central to this strategy. However, the Soviets, forewarned by intelligence of the German plans, prepared extensive defenses, including minefields, anti-tank ditches, and fortified positions, which blunted the German assault. The Panzers found themselves embroiled in a ferocious battle against well-prepared defensive lines and a growing number of Soviet tanks, including improved models of the T-34 and the new Joseph Stalin tanks. The high losses in tanks and men, combined with the failure to achieve strategic objectives, led to the cancellation of Operation Citadel. The Battle of Kursk not only ended German offensive capability on the Eastern Front, but also highlighted the diminishing returns of Blitzkrieg tactics against prepared positions and equal technology. The Eastern Front tested the limits of German panzer divisions more than any other theater in World War II. The initial successes, marked by rapid advances and encirclements, gave way to prolonged attritional warfare, which exposed the strategic limitations of reliance on armored spearheads without adequate logistical and infantry support. The lessons of the Eastern Front, highlighting the importance of adaptability, the impact of harsh environmental conditions, and the evolution of tank technology, reshaped the course of armored warfare. The German Panzers, once the heralds of a new way of war, found themselves outpaced by the very tactics and technologies they had helped to pioneer. The D-Day invasion, officially termed Operation Overlord and launched on June 6, 1944, marked a critical juncture in World War II as Allied forces initiated the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi occupation. The German Panzer divisions, once the spearhead of the Wehrmacht's Blitzkrieg across Europe, were now tasked with containing a massive multinational force along the fortified Atlantic Wall. However, the Normandy invasion demonstrated how the strategic and tactical dynamics of the war had shifted, and the Panzer divisions faced new challenges that would ultimately contribute to their decline. In the months leading up to the invasion, the Allies conducted a deceptive campaign to mislead the German command about the location and timing of the landings. This deception included fake equipment, phantom armies led by General Patton, and misleading radio communications. Despite these efforts, the German High Command maintained substantial forces in and around Normandy, including several panzer divisions. However, these units were not all immediately available to respond to the landings, partly due to Hitler's direct control over their deployment. On the morning of June 6th, over 156,000 Allied troops landed across 5 beachheads: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. The panzer divisions, renowned for their rapid response capabilities, were stymied by a combination of Allied air superiority and logistical challenges. The Luftwaffe was largely absent due to its diminished numbers and the overwhelming presence of Allied aircraft, which also disrupted German communications and hindered the movement of reinforcements. The panzers that could engage the Allies faced well-coordinated land, sea, and air forces. At beaches like Omaha, the initial defenses inflicted heavy casualties on the invaders. However, the Allies quickly secured beachheads, and the panzers were unable to dislodge them. The terrain of Normandy, characterized by its hedgerows, also proved disadvantageous for the Germans. These dense earthen walls segmented the battlefield and reduced the mobility that the panzers had previously exploited in open field maneuvers across Europe. One of the most significant confrontations involving the panzer divisions was the battle for Caen, a vital objective due to its strategic location and road network. The city witnessed some of the most intense fighting of the Normandy campaign. British and Canadian forces faced multiple panzer counterattacks as both sides endured tremendous losses. The city was reduced to rubble, mirroring the brutal urban combat of the Eastern Front, and demonstrated the attritional nature of the battlefront. The culmination of the Normandy campaign was the Falaise pocket, where retreating German forces, including several battered panzer divisions, were encircled by advancing Allied troops. From August 12 to 21, 1944, the Allies closed the gap, trapping around 50,000 German troops. The destruction in the Falaise pocket was monumental. It signified not just a tactical defeat, but a symbolic end to the efficacy of the panzer divisions as a fighting force. The heavy losses in men, tanks, and equipment from this encirclement were irreplaceable given Germany's dwindling resources. Throughout the Normandy campaign, the impact of Allied air superiority cannot be overstated. Allied planes continuously harassed German reinforcements and supply lines, significantly hindering the operational capability of the panzer divisions. This constant air threat forced the panzers to move mostly at night, reducing their effectiveness and contributing to the general disarray among German forces. By the end of August 1944, the German forces had been compelled to retreat across the Seine, marking the beginning of the end of Nazi occupation in Western Europe. The Normandy campaign highlighted several critical weaknesses in the panzer divisions that had been previously exposed on the Eastern Front but were now undeniable. The limitations in fuel supply, mechanical reliability, and tactical flexibility, coupled with the Allied dominance in air and logistical capabilities, showcased the changed circumstances of the war. The failure of the panzer divisions in Normandy also reflected broader strategic missteps by the German command, including Hitler's insistence on static defense and his reluctance to allow strategic withdrawals when necessary. These decisions prevented the panzers from being used effectively, undermining their potential impact. The Normandy campaign was a stark illustration of how the war had evolved from fast-moving, sweeping encirclements to a grueling battle of attrition where air power and logistics dominated. The once feared panzer divisions were constrained not only by Allied material superiority but also by strategic misjudgments and operational limitations. The crumbling of the Western Wall marked a significant turning point in World War II, heralding the decline of German armored might and paving the way for the Allied advance into the heart of Nazi-occupied Europe. The story of the panzer divisions in Normandy is a testament to the changing dynamics of modern warfare, where flexibility, coordination, and logistical support often become as decisive as firepower and armor. In the aftermath of the Normandy landings, the Allied forces continued their push into occupied France, leading to one of the most decisive engagements of World War II, the Battle of the Falaise Pocket. This battle not only marked a significant tactical victory for the Allies, but also symbolized the catastrophic disintegration of German military strength in the West, particularly that of the once-dreaded panzer divisions. The battle took place between August 12 and 21, 1944, near the town of Falaise in Normandy. Following the successful landings and the prolonged battle for Normandy, the Allied forces aimed to exploit the weakened German defenses by encircling and destroying a large portion of the German Army Group B. The American, British, Canadian, and Polish forces were tasked with closing the gap around Falaise, trapping tens of thousands of German soldiers. The strategic goal of the Falaise pocket was clear: to annihilate the German forces in Normandy and pave the way for the liberation of Paris and the push towards the German border. For the Germans, the situation was desperate but not entirely devoid of hope. Field Marshal Walter Model, the newly appointed commander of the German forces in the West, attempted a coordinated withdrawal, hoping to maintain a cohesive defensive line and preserve what remained of his forces. The battle began with the Allies quickly gaining ground around the town of Chambois, aiming to link up with the Polish armored divisions and the Canadian forces coming from the north. The German Panzer divisions, along with various infantry and SS units, were caught in a rapidly shrinking pocket. The Panzers, critically low on fuel and ammunition, struggled to repel the constant Allied assaults, which were heavily supported by artillery and airstrikes. As the pocket constricted, the conditions inside became dire. German troops and their heavy equipment were packed into an increasingly small area, making them easy targets for the Allies' superior air power. The relentless bombings and constant pressure from ground attacks turned the pocket into a killing field, littered with destroyed tanks and equipment, and the casualties quickly mounted on both sides. The decisive moment of the battle came when American, Canadian, and Polish forces managed to close the gap near the village of Chambois, effectively sealing the fate of the German forces trapped inside the pocket. Despite desperate attempts to break out or break through the encircling Allied forces, the German units were largely unsuccessful. The fighting was brutal and at close quarters, with reports of fierce hand-to-hand combat. By August 21st, the majority of the encirclement was complete, and the remaining German forces in the pocket were either surrendering or being annihilated. The Allies captured around 50,000 prisoners and inflicted devastating material losses on the Germans, including the destruction of hundreds of vehicles and tanks. The psychological blow to the Germans was immense, as the Falaise pocket underscored the irreversible decline in German military fortunes. The aftermath of the Falaise pocket was grim for the Germans. The loss of experienced soldiers, critical supplies, and valuable panzer units left a void that could not be filled given Germany's strained resources and production capabilities. For the Allies, the victory was a turning point, boosting morale and solidifying the success of the Normandy campaign. Shortly thereafter, Paris was liberated, and the Allies continued their advance across France and into the heart of Germany. The battle also provided key tactical lessons, particularly regarding the use of combined arms to encircle and defeat an enemy. It demonstrated the effectiveness of close air support and the importance of coordinated maneuvers across multinational forces. For the German Panzer divisions, the Falaise pocket was emblematic of their broader decline on the Western Front. Once feared as the vanguard of Hitler's military machine, they had been reduced to fighting rearguard actions under increasingly hopeless conditions. The battle illustrated not only the tactical mistakes of the German High Command, but also the logistical and strategic misjudgments that had plagued the German military since the start of the war. The Falaise pocket stands as a stark testament to the crumbling might of the German Panzer divisions. It highlighted the lethal combination of Allied material superiority and strategic coordination, which, when paired with German strategic blunders, led to one of the most definitive defeats of the Wehrmacht during World War II. The end of the road at Falaise not only marked the collapse of German positions in Normandy, but also foreshadowed the ultimate downfall of Nazi Germany. The German Panzer divisions, initially at the forefront of military innovation and strategy with their Blitzkrieg tactics, ultimately faced a series of strategic challenges that contributed to their downfall. The story of their rise and fall is intricately tied to the broader narrative of strategic overreach by the German military, particularly on the eastern and western fronts. This chapter explores how overambition, logistical overextension, and underestimation of enemy capabilities led to significant setbacks and failures, highlighting the consequences of strategic overreach in military campaigns. The early years of World War II saw the Panzer divisions executing highly effective campaigns across Europe. The rapid conquests of Poland, France, and the initial successes in the Soviet Union were testament to the effectiveness of German military strategy, centered around speed, surprise, and technological superiority. However, these victories sowed the seeds of overconfidence. Hitler and the German High Command began to envision grandiose plans for dominating Europe and beyond, underestimating the logistical demands and the resilience of the opposition. Nowhere was the impact of strategic overreach more evident than on the Eastern Front. The invasion of the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, was the largest military operation in history in terms of manpower and breadth. Yet, it was plagued by a fundamental underestimation of the Soviet Union's capacity to resist and rebound. As the Panzer divisions pushed deeper into Soviet territory, the supply lines stretched impossibly thin, and the harsh Russian winter took a severe toll on men and machinery. The failure to capture Moscow and the subsequent Soviet counteroffensives during the winter of 1941 highlighted the perils of overreach. The German strategy assumed a quick victory that did not materialize, leading to a prolonged war of attrition for which Germany was not prepared. The Panzer divisions, designed for quick and decisive operations, were bogged down in a grueling conflict that drained resources and morale. The strategic overreach was also evident in the underestimation of the Allies' capabilities. Initially, German intelligence failed to gauge the potential of the United States and the resilience of the British during the Battle of Britain and subsequently the Soviet Union's industrial and military recovery. By the time of the D-Day landings, the Allied forces had significantly closed the technology gap, and the Luftwaffe was no longer the dominant air force it had once been. The Allied mastery of air superiority during the Normandy campaign fundamentally altered the operational environment, in which the German panzers could no longer maneuver with impunity. The Allies' improvements in tank design, production, and tactics, exemplified by tanks such as the Soviet T-34 and later the American M4 Sherman, also caught the German panzers at a disadvantage. The continuous improvements in Allied armor and anti-tank weapons neutralized the technological edge that the panzers had relied upon. The battle in the Falaise pocket serves as a stark symbol of German strategic overreach. The encirclement and destruction of the German forces in Normandy were not just a tactical defeat, but a manifestation of the cumulative errors in strategy by the German High Command. By insisting on holding all territories and refusing to allow strategic withdrawals, Hitler effectively doomed significant portions of his best forces to annihilation or capture. The German Panzer division's decline was not merely due to tactical or technological factors, but was deeply rooted in the strategic miscalculations that characterized much of Nazi military thinking. The belief in swift, decisive victories led to operations that stretched German capabilities to their breaking point. When faced with the industrial might and growing military prowess of the Allies, the strategy of overreach proved disastrous. The history of the Panzer divisions is a cautionary tale about the limits of military power and the dangers of overreach. It underscores the importance of realistic strategic planning, the recognition of logistical limitations, and the necessity of adaptability in the face of evolving enemy capabilities. The decline of the Panzer divisions reflects broader themes of World War II, where hubris led to downfall, and adaptability often proved the key to survival. As the dust settled on the battlefields of World War II, the story of the German Panzer divisions offered profound lessons in military strategy, technology, and the broader implications of warfare. Their rise and fall traced the arc of Nazi Germany's ambitions and ultimately its failures, serving as a poignant reminder of the limitations of military power when wielded without foresight or restraint. The German Panzer divisions, initially celebrated for their swift and decisive victories in the early years of the war, ultimately became a symbol of strategic overreach. The initial success of Blitzkrieg tactics gave way to protracted battles and attritional warfare, for which these units were ill-prepared. The strategic missteps, overconfidence in quick victories, underestimation of enemy resilience, and the failure to adapt to changing combat environments led to dire consequences. This overreach was not just a failure of tactics, but of strategic vision. The German High Command, driven by Hitler's ideologies and territorial ambitions, often made decisions that were strategically unsound and unsustainable in the long term. These decisions forced the panzers into battles that drained their effectiveness and hastened their decline. The panzer divisions were at the forefront of military technology at the war's outset. However, the constant need for adaptation in response to Allied innovations in armor and tactics highlights a crucial aspect of military technology. Its effectiveness is only as lasting as its ability to evolve. The development of the Panther and Tiger tanks was a response to the superior Soviet armor encountered on the Eastern Front, demonstrating Germany's capacity for technological innovation. Yet, these advancements were often too little and too late to affect the outcome of the war, compounded by production issues and resource shortages. The Allies, learning from each encounter, gradually closed the technological gap. The introduction of tanks like the Soviet T-34 and American M4 Sherman, along with improved anti-tank tactics, showcased the Allies' ability to adapt technologically and tactically. This adaptability was a decisive factor in the eventual Allied victory, emphasizing that in warfare, innovation must be continuous and responsive to the shifting dynamics of battle. Beyond strategy and technology, the history of the panzer divisions underscores the immense human cost of war. The divisions, comprising thousands of soldiers, were often seen as elite units. However, as the war dragged on, the human toll of the relentless fighting, especially on the eastern and western fronts, became unsustainable. The attrition in veteran units, difficulties in replenishment, and the psychological impact of continuous defeat weighed heavily on the soldiers. The loss of life in catastrophic encirclements like the Falaise pocket highlighted the grim reality of mechanized warfare and its devastating impact on human lives. The legacy of the panzer divisions offers several lessons for future generations. It serves as a caution against overambition in military campaigns, highlighting the need for realistic goals and strategies that consider long-term sustainability. It also illustrates the importance of adaptability in both technology and tactics as the conditions of warfare evolve. Moreover, the story is a reminder of the human aspects of military history. It challenges us to consider not only the decisions of leaders and strategists, but also the experiences of the soldiers who carry out those orders. Understanding both the human and operational dimensions of the Panzer Division's history can provide more comprehensive insights into the complex nature of warfare. As we reflect on the history of the Panzer Divisions, their story is a microcosm of World War II's broader themes: ambition, innovation, resilience, and tragedy. It reminds us that in war, the balance of technology and strategy, coupled with human courage and fallibility, creates a tapestry that is as intricate as it is impactful. The lessons gleaned from the ashes of the Panzer Division's final battles are not just historical footnotes but enduring insights into the art of war and the price of conflict.